Estimados señoras y señores colegas, muchas gracias por invitarme. Este Congreso muestra una vez más la movilización en el mundo entero, no solo sobre la emergencia del cambio climático, sino también sobre las oportunidades sociales y económicas que esta transición representa. Como no podía estar con ustedes en persona, ya que actualmente estoy en Tokio, muy lejos, quería enviar este mensaje de apoyo desde la distancia. Quiero empezar primero con un elogio a la contribución nacional colombiana presentada por el subsecretario del Ministerio de Medio Ambiente, el señor Pablo Viera Samper, en la reunión ministerial informal de París el mes pasado. Hubo un aplauso general y realmente de nuevo muchos elogios. Esta contribución es en línea con el compromiso constructivo que Colombia siempre ha traído y sigue trayendo en las negociaciones climáticas, y estoy segura de que lo hará hasta París. Colombia para nosotros en esta negociación es un apoyo firme y coincidimos en muchas de las visiones de Colombia, y eso quería agradecerlo en una forma particular en este momento. Today, less than 2 months from the start of the Paris conference, there is an unprecedented momentum. Beyond the parties, which for the first time in history all want a universal agreement, there is a very strong mobilization across all sectors across our society. Citizen associations, companies, local authorities are all aware of the emergency to act. This historic turning point does not mean it will be easy. It is not. We must transform this mobilization into a clear course, a framework that combines efforts to reduce greenhouse emissions and adaptation to already existing climate disruption. In Paris, we must build an alliance for climate action that allows us to contain the average global temperature rise below 2 degrees C or 1.5. By doing so, we will also send a clear signal to citizens, to communities and businesses around the world to act. Government has to be clear, determined, and very firm. This alliance is already taking shape through the preparation of a national contribution. This is unprecedented. Every country preparing something which is a clear support for the Paris Agreement, at the same time based on a very true national discussion and debate. We are still expecting, of course, many more contributions. By the COP21, over 90% of world emission should be covered. But that on itself is not enough, and that is why we need a universal agreement that can guide and strengthen the contribution over time and give a clear and common vision for the long term, enabling the decarbonization of economies over time and ensuring resilience to the existing effect of climate disruption. We also need to have the means of our common ambition. That is why the question of financing and technology transfer will be at the heart of Paris, and why finance ministers are invited to meet in Lima in a few days. The commitment made in Copenhagen in 2009 to mobilize 100 billion a year by 2020 for developing countries must be held. I'm confident that we will be there. And finally, the mobilization of field actors, scientists, entrepreneurs, local leaders, investors is part of the equation and of the solution. It is the ambition of what we call the fourth pillar of the Paris Alliance, or the Lima Paris Action Agenda, to enable us to do more faster, more cheaper, and starting now, reinforcing the ambition between now and 2020 and involving non-state actors in climate action. We want the Paris Conference to emphasize all these concrete action and cooperation between government and non-state actors. For us, it's a key dimension of all this, because it will give courage and energy to governments that are really to take into account the willingness and the energy of these actors. That's why at the conference an action day will be held on December 5 and will showcase initiatives throughout the world that combine fighting climate change and economic development. All civil society should be involved, indeed. NGOs are of course very active, enabling citizens to take part into this dynamic and making the case for ambitious policies. We need the NGOs as we need them on the 29th of November in the street of Paris. Communities, cities and regions, alongside with states, must make concrete commitments to reduce emissions and improve resilience. And businesses must be at the forefront of climate solution and innovation without necessarily waiting for public action. And we know that the businesses will implement anyway whatever guidance the policymakers will deliver. We are working to bring each day new businesses, cities, associations, and help make visible their action and commitments. We ask them to take commitments more and more and to show them in Paris and beyond. We invite all governments and all actors of civil society, business, local authorities, NGOs to support and strengthen this agenda for action. This doesn't replace the action of states, but it strengthens it. It may really develop it. In December, we'll see this dynamic in a day of action to be held December 5 at high level. For 1 to 8 December, a series of thematic focus will happen and support the day in the main sector of the transformation. Beyond the goal of 100 billion, trillions of private investment has to flow and are flowing, both north and south. These billions, trillions, needs to shift toward the financing of a low-carbon economy, with new and resilient mode of production and consumption. We also encourage the most progressive actors to make voluntary commitment in favor of this transition. The Climate Finance Day, held in Paris in May, confirmed, for instance, the growing mobilization of financial players and help illustrate some best practices in the industry: decarbonization of investment portfolio, development of green bonds, etc. At the same time, rating agencies are now integrating the climate risk factor, sending more and more the necessary signals to private investors and reinforcing the dynamics of transition to a low-carbon economy. As France and with others governments from G7 and G20, we incentivize the FSB to really send these signals through financial markets. This mobilization is here to amplify, and new investors must commit. All these commitments will be structured in the coming months via platforms that are integrated to the climate conventions, such as NASCA, which exists already, and everyone can put its commitment on this platform. This illustrates the important role of the private sector in the Paris Alliance. States must also implement public policies and clear incentive frameworks, such as putting a price on carbon or gradually reducing fossil fuel subsidies. As announced by the French President and the Prime Minister, France will no longer support any coal plant power project abroad that doesn't integrate carbon capture and storage technology. This philosophy of no subsidies on high carbon activities to restore a level playing field with low carbon activities is the philosophy of the French government today. Quiero concluir en español. Estamos a un punto de inflexión en el momento más clave de la historia de la lucha contra el cambio climático. Ahora está claro que no solo esta lucha no será un lastre para el crecimiento económico, al contrario, sino que representa una oportunidad sin precedente para invertir en un modelo económico sostenible, resistente y próspero. Hay una dinámica y una confianza sin precedente de que vamos a construir un mundo nuevo conjuntamente, estados y asociaciones, empresas y sociedades locales, científicos y ciudadanos. Así que cuento con todos ustedes a ser parte de esta transición hacia un mundo nuevo. Muchas gracias y que tengan un congreso muy productivo. Tengo muchas ganas de tener noticias de los resultados y ver a muchos de ustedes en París en diciembre para un nuevo comienzo.